to order, and I'd like to invite Trustee Burgess to do the acknowledgement of traditional lands and water.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We acknowledge that we are on land and surrounded by water, originally inhabited by Indigenous peoples who have traveled this area since time immemorial. This territory is within the lands honored by the Wampum Treaties, agreements between the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenni Lenape, and allied nations to peacefully share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Specifically, we would like to acknowledge the presence of the Three Fire Confederacy, the Ojibwa, Odawa, Potawatomi, and the Huron-Wendat peoples. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture while remaining committed to moving forward respectfully with all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis.
Thank you, Trustee Burgess. With regard to attendance, we gave our student trustees the option of attending to observe the process, but they're writing exams, so they politely turned down the option to attend. I've also been informed that Trustee Cook will be absent tonight as well as tomorrow night, and I haven't heard from Trustee Chin. I assumed she would be attending. So with that, I'm moving to approval of the agenda, but I would just like to, on that note, say that prior to starting the candidate interviews, I will make some general remarks, just so you know, for the agenda. Okay, motion to approve the agenda. Trustee Nelson, Trustee Buckler, all those in support. That's carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest for this meeting? Seeing none, then we're going to move on to the feature of the evening. Good evening and welcome to everyone to our special meeting tonight. Thank you to all the candidates for investing your time and your interest in the trustee vacancy, and I will briefly review the process for the interviews tonight. The order of the interviews will take place alphabetically by surname, and each candidate will be sequestered in the cafeteria until it is time for their interview. Candidates have also been advised that the use of electronic devices while they are waiting is prohibited to ensure a fair and transparent process. So you won't be able to play video games while you're in there. Director Houston will be facilitating the interview questions, which have been provided to the candidates in advance. Each candidate will have up to a total of 15 minutes to respond to all of the 3 questions. During the interviews, trustees will be listening to the responses, but will also be taking notes during the process. No disrespect is meant if trustees appear to lose eye contact with the candidates, but we do need to make some notes so that we can distinguish between the candidates and their responses. Once the interviews are completed, the Board of Trustees will vote by secret ballot, and voting will continue until one candidate receives a majority of the votes. The voting process has been shared in advance with both the trustees and the candidates, and we have 2 superintendents acting as scrutineers for this process. We do, correct? Yes. Once a successful candidate has been determined, a motion will be made to confirm the appointment of that candidate and to destroy the ballots. At the end of each interview, the candidate is then free to either leave the board office, or you're welcome back to have a seat in the public gallery for the remainder of the meeting. The new trustee will be sworn in tomorrow at 4 p.m. during an orientation meeting with the chair of the board and the director. The trustee will also be expected to attend the regularly scheduled board meeting tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. And just before we start the interviews, I would like to ensure that the candidates are clear about the new attendance regulations, which became effective July 29th, and have serious consequences effective September 1st. Details were provided to candidates prior to these interviews tonight, but I think it is worth emphasizing since this is new for all of us. So trustees must attend all regularly scheduled board meetings in person. Strict provisions may allow a trustee to apply for approval to attend electronically, but the circumstances for approval are very limited. Failure to attend a meeting in person or failure to be approved to attend electronically will cause the trustee to vacate their seat on the board. For example, our understanding of the new regulation is that trustees may not miss a meeting or attend electronically because of work commitments that might conflict with the board meeting, or being away on vacation, or being away for any other reason. I hope that candidates gave serious thought to the new attendance regulation. Again, to all the candidates, thank you for your interest in serving as a trustee of our school board. And we will now begin the interview process, and I turn this over to Director Houston. Once you all leave the room, we will start the interview process.
And Mohammed can start.
Thank you. Mr. Baky, you can stay. You can come. Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I have the first question. As a trustee, what opportunities and challenges do you see for student achievement and well-being, and how can the board monitor progress in these areas?
Thank you very much. First, I would like to acknowledge that we meet on the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of Ojibwa, Ottawa, and Potawatomi, and Huron-Wendat people. We are committed to honoring Indigenous history and culture and moving forward respectfully with First Nations people, Inuit, Métis communities. I thank the board chair and the board for the opportunity to this important interview. There are a lot of opportunities. We are raising next generation citizens, and the first and foremost important thing would be like mental health. I'm a professor at the university, and I see for firsthand, and the awareness, the also to deal with like physical fitness, nutrition, healthy eating, prevention of drug, and these are our opportunities. We have special education needs for various reasons, like disabilities, physical disabilities, mental disabilities, developmental delays, autism. Uh, we need to use technologies. Even at the, we are aware of the funding constraint, but we have to find ways like professional development of teachers and to deal with all this. And we have opportunity to help the first generation students. They need help how to navigate with the system. We need to help. We need to be aware of equity, diversity, inclusion, belonging, reconciliation. Equity is we need to support people. We need to meet their needs. Diversity is we celebrate our differences. Inclusion is everyone can participate. Belonging is they feel accepted. And reconciliation is we honor indigenous history and culture, their rights, and we respect their accomplishment. And we have to be respectful of people's gender identity and sexual orientation. And we have to respect their pronoun choices and their symbols of pride, like flag, things like, universal washroom. We have to give our students financial literacy, basic life skills, like even cooking, maintenance of cars, basic skills. We have to think about community and industrial partnership, like partnership with the universities or colleges, co-op, internship, dual degrees. And we have to recognize that it's continuous learning, lifelong learning for both students and teachers. And things are always changing, dynamic, and we have to learn. Challenges, you asked me about opportunities and then challenges. Equity is a big challenge. Our understanding about equity is never ending. But we will not give up. We will organize consultation sessions, bringing in experts, parents, community, teachers, and we will try to understand the problems with equity. We have challenges post-COVID recovery. We need to standardize. We need to document our understanding of how we dealt with this challenge. The DMIC, define, measure, analyze, improve, control, we can use. We have a lot of funding constraint. There is a budget deficit. So that's a challenge. There is challenge about uncertainties. Always things are changing, dynamic. we have to understand, we have to arrange consultation, we have to collect data. Now, you said how we can monitor. Well, to monitor, first thing we need to do is we have to do consultation, like what we shall monitor. The consultation will be with parents, students, teachers, community, and survey the students, whether they feel their needs addressed, their mental health, their whether their equity needs are addressed. Collect data on graduation rate, data on attendance, participation in various programs, standardized test, and then apply again those DMAIC principle: define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. It's continuous improvement. And finally, report. We have to be transparent, report to the community about all these that we got. Thank you.
Thank you. And the second question, how would you determine budget priorities?
Yes. Budget priorities. We have to have vision, and yes, the school board has very good vision, building tomorrow together, and confident learners, and community engagement. And so once we have the vision, we have to organize, we have to arrange consultation with the community, parents, teachers, students, community, about our priorities, about the programs. Then we have to use our equity lens. Things have to be fair, and we have to meet the needs of, like, special education, like we have to think about equity, diversity, inclusion. And then we have to analyze the data. We have to balance our needs, balance the long-term and short-term needs, immediate need and future need. And we have to advocate for funding, although we know that it is constant. And then we have to report to the community what we got out of this process. Thank you.
And the third question, the board has made a decision that you opposed. As a trustee in opposition, how would you move forward?
Yeah, good question. Thank you. We have to be cognizant about our code of conduct, about the meeting process. And we have to know the rationale of the decision, of the rationale of the proposal, the motion. And we can bring in amendments. We can suggest to rescind this. We have to be respectful about the process, the democratic process. We have to be respectful about the people, collegiality, maintain collegiality, and we need to bring in constructive ideas, suggestions, collaborate as opposed to being disruptive. And at the end, whatever happens, we have to accept the decision of the board. And if we have to talk about this, we have to maintain confidentiality. We have to be respectful to the board and our colleagues, other trustees, their rights. And at the same time, we have to be transparent as well. So, yeah, the code of conduct is a good guide. We have to maintain that. Thank you.
Thank you. So that concludes all of the questions. As the chair mentioned, you're welcome to remain in the gallery or you're free to go.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much. Hello.
Hello.
So I will ask you the first question. As a trustee, what opportunities and challenges do you see for student achievement and well-being, and how can the board monitor progress in these areas?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the director, Vicky, and Houston, and Gail as well, and all the other directors here for having me for this interview. I believe I'd be a great candidate for this position, as I bring experiences, including academic, life experience as a parent and a person working in Windsor, as well as a passion to continue to advocate for a strong, accountable public education system for children and youth in this board. So this brings me to the first question. My answer is student success and well-being is at the pinnacle of the board's strategy plan by 1, creating confident learners, 2, engaging communities, and 3, demonstrating ethical stewardship. As a trustee, I would ensure that the board continues to uphold student achievement and well-being by placing it at the forefront of all policies and practices implemented. School is where children and youth learn academic excellence and strive to be their best, and it is our job to support all learners in an equitable manner. However, students cannot learn properly if their well-being is at risk. Too many students arrive at school hungry, and this is a barrier to their academic success. We know the federal government is launching a national school food program with an investment of $1 billion over the next 5 years. And this will definitely make a huge difference. However, hunger cannot wait. Fortunately, in November of this year, a school lunch pilot program was launched with the support of the Gordie Howe International Community Benefits Plan to offer 35,000 free school lunches to our students. This is indeed an opportunity to ensure student achievement by directly addressing the well-being. However, this is just a start, as the pilot program worked with only 2 of our schools within the board. As a trustee, I would build on this opportunity of our relationship with organizations such as the Gordie Howe International Community Benefits Plan to reach more students, thereby bridging the hunger gap while the National School Food Program is rolled out. We know the pandemic had and continues to have a devastating effect on our school communities in terms of inflation, the housing crisis, economic and food insecurity. The Gordie Howe Plan is a wonderful opportunity to address hunger in our schools. However, the issue of childhood hunger remains a significant challenge and one I am committed to addressing in order that every student in the board benefit from a healthy school lunch. Together, we can do this. And I want to cite a couple specifics while keeping my eye on the clock. Challenges I think that we do face, specifically other challenges, social media and media literacy, something I'm very conscious of as a parent. I've watched this landscape change drastically with my own daughter over the last 5 years. It is a moving target and something the board needs to have a handle on. As we see in the news every day, such as TikTok. 2, pathways. What are students doing for a career? Pathways is a struggle, ultimately, to the kind of future students want, where they can envision themselves. How do we as a board introduce the future to students? How do we provide a way for themselves where they can see themselves and see themselves in other? Ultimately, education is a struggle for the future, ultimately, I believe. And lastly, the challenge of equity. And I'll just say, knowing the difference between equity and equality. Opportunities, keep the eye on the ball in terms of extracurriculars. There's more to life than school. Leveraging failure. How do we assist our students in building resilience and looking at failure as a win-win situation where not just success is rewarded? And flipping the script, how do we better tell students that social liabilities are actually assets, where they can bring their own social capital to defining themselves? And that is the answer to my first question.
Thank you. And the second question, how would you determine budget priorities?
Okay, well, firstly, students should always be on the top of the list, meaning facilitating an environment where they can achieve and foster their well-being, as per the first question. So in that sense, this determination would be one which places doing no harm to students, not only at the top of the list, but as a non-negotiable. The reality is this board has been faced with spending less, a trend I don't see ending anytime soon. Trustees are going to have to encourage the board to come up with creative solutions in consultation with parents and teachers. The intent of the board is to facilitate achievement and foster well-being. And I think how we get there is a community effort. I think it's something that ultimately is not necessarily a black and white path, and something that's going to require an unrelentless kind of community engagement as the political and economic environment change in this country, and as we're seeing today, could change rather rapidly in the near future. And I think that, let me just take a look at my notes to see if I have anything to add to that question. I think that would be it. Yeah.
Thank you. And the third question, the board has made a decision that you opposed. As a trustee in opposition, how would you move forward?
Well, the very simple answer is pardon me for 1 second. Let me get my bearings here. Director Houston, can I toggle back to the last question, actually? I'll
Sure.
stay within my time limit. This is very important for me to mention. Getting back to budget priorities, in reviewing the previous budget for the board, I want to say that I would continue to advocate for one that is in alignment with the board's strategic priorities in supporting student success and well-being, as outlined on page 22 of the 24-25 approved budget. This budget demonstrated the board's commitment to their ongoing work in areas of justice, inclusion, equity, and diversity. All of our schools and facilities must be safe spaces to learn. This includes continuing work on dismantling anti-Black racism, which addresses the inequalities experienced by Black students and their families. Now, I can speak personally to this, as my daughter did go to Riverside Secondary School when they changed their mascot, and from the Rebels. I found the name, I was, to be honest, quite shocked when I first found out. And I found it really rather insensitive and inappropriate, given the time we live in, where we do know better. So I was happy to see the society move on, to be honest. My daughters also went to James L. Dunn. One of them was fortunate enough to be on the school naming committee. And one thing I found interesting about the process, which actually was in this room, there was kind of a movement to give a neutral name to the school. And there was like an insistence on a so-called quote unquote neutrality of name. And, my opinion is there's nothing neutral about being neutral. Neutral has an embedded code in it that says, I don't want to deal with anti-Black racism. So it's kind of a misguided approach. And again, I was disappointed, but also happy at the same time that the process played itself out and delivered the naming of the school that had some significance and meaning, as opposed to giving it a somewhat naming it after a noun. Personally, I just want to let everyone hear, I do acknowledge my own privilege, and I pledge that I would consciously and continuously use an equity lens and consult with all stakeholders to work out a fiscally responsible budget to ensure it supports student success and well-being. And if it's okay, I could move on to the last question now, which actually works out because it's my shortest answer. And the question is regarding the board decisions I would oppose. How would I move forward? Well, the answer to that question is very simple. And it is that I would accept the decision as one which followed democratic procedure. I would not view myself as having experienced a loss or another board member as being categorically wrong or misguided. I would view this as a process by which each board member made what they thought at that time is the best decision with the information they had, plain and simple. I would not seek any kind of retribution or take it personally for that matter, nor would I embark on any kind of public campaign shaming my peers because I happen to disagree. Now, that said, if an unusual or extreme case surfaced where a decision was made, perhaps unknowingly, where there was a breach of any sort of legislative human rights code in violation of the Education Act or something of this official nature, I would make this known to the board in a diplomatic manner, rational manner, for to embark on a discussion that would look to resolve the issue accordingly. I suspect this question is testing to determine if candidates would be a quote unquote sore loser, immature or vindictive, losing sight of the purpose and process of trustees. Look, no system is perfect, but the intent of this board is both a privilege and a service which no individual person or opinion should be above. And that's the finality of my third answer.
Thank you very much. And as the chair mentioned earlier, you're welcome to stay in the gallery or you're welcome to leave.
Okay, well, I thank everyone for your time and patience, and thank you very much.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'll ask you the first question. As a trustee, what opportunities and challenges do you see for student achievement and well-being? And how can the board monitor progress in these areas?
Okay. First of all, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Chair, trustees, Director. Thank you for the opportunity today to be able to partake in the trustee position. So if I can first start with well-being, I look at four particular categories. First one is physical. We look at what are some of the physical requirements of well-being that we need to ensure that are in the schools. Second is cognitive. We want to make sure that we have the proper problem solving, as well as critical thinking included in the well-being of each and every student. The third piece I believe is a good is the emotional side, ensuring that there is emotional support for each of the students. And the last piece is the social, ensuring that there's engagement, collaboration with the student as well. So on the well-being side, some of the opportunities I find is the equity and inclusion is an important element to ensuring the health and well-being of the student and being a primary focus. Safe schools is also important, that the student is to be felt safe. They're able to operate in an environment that fosters learning, which is very, very important in a student's well-being. Ensuring that there is appropriate mental health capabilities within the program to ensure that, again, the student's well-being is very well recognized. Now, looking at specifically student achievement is a very important factor that needs to be addressed in every school board, including the school board. And some of the elements is ensuring that the standards that have been set for student achievement is made very clear, and those student achievement expectations are very high, and they're very high for a reason. We also look at other opportunities within student achievement, is looking at our math scores. How do we improve those math scores? How do we make sure that we are increasing the emphasis on that particular area as well? We're also looking at another opportunity within student achievement is looking at the STEM program, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. That is something that continues to be an important factor with regards to student achievement. Third piece of the opportunity for student achievement, what I would suggest is being able to transition to post-secondary, and also to the fourth is to ensuring that they have the proper skill set for job employment and be ready. Those are opportunities that I think that the focus on that student achievement piece is very, very important in that particular area. And the other opportunity for student achievement is looking at some of the international assessments and where do we actually rank. And I think having an eye on how well the program is working, and that allows you to be able to do some of the great things to improve student achievement. Some of the challenges I would suggest is for student achievements. We went through COVID. There's a lot of opportunities there that are still trying to assess how the recovery will be for that. So there's going to be some opportunities there. And the second item would be unique student, the uniqueness of every student, given that there's a diverse set of students in each and every classroom. How do we ensure that that student is properly being assessed? And so that's a challenge that educators have, and continue to look and how they're making those kind of improvements. Fostering a positive experience when it comes to learning, ensuring, and that's something that you have outside influences that come into play, and we need to focus on how do we improve on those particular challenges, and especially given some of the I would say wide range and diverse areas of student behavior, and there's not a one-fit-all type of a solution. So obviously looking at student behavior and some of the issues that come along with that as well. There's also a challenge when it comes to identifying what the gaps are with students with disabilities. I think that's a very important area that we need to ensure that those gaps are clearly identified, as well as ensuring that we have the proper mechanisms to improve those particular opportunities for each and every student. As it regards to monitoring this, I think this is the role of a trustee. They're responsible for governance. It's not to be in the weeds. You do have a director that sets follows the policy of the board and of the ministry, and looking at ensuring that getting back what I call key performance indicators. You want to be able to get some feedback from your director that you're on track, you're falling behind, or maybe you're doing really good in a particular area. And I think that is really evident in having that good communication with your director and making sure that the expectations of the trustees of the ministry's policies are being followed. And if there is any issues, then it's a matter of looking, saying, okay, what can we do? We do have some time, and now the frequency will be dependent on what the appetite of the trustees are. If they feel that this is something that is done on a regular, quarterly, semi-annually, annual basis, it's really about the comfort level of what the current trustee would expect. So on a regular monitoring, again, identifying what those key performance indicators, the KPIs, should be, and then having a system in place that you're able to check to say, yes, we're on target, or we need to put some more emphasis on a particular area. Thank you.
Thank you. And the second question, how would you determine budget priorities?
Budget priorities, I would first start with what are some of the mandated priorities that the province requires and mandates to local school boards. There are some programs that are mandated, and I think you have to set your priorities based on that. As well as then you look at your multi-year strategic plan. Obviously, that plan is there for a reason. It's a forward-thinking document, and when you're trying to set your budget priorities, you want to make sure that those priorities are always in line and they're always in sight as well. You want to make sure that you're not making knee-jerk reactions. You're looking at it in a kind of a longer term. What is the benefit? Because some programs, as you probably know, takes 1, 3, 5 years to fully implement. And the more you're able to be dedicated for that particular program, because a lot of emphasis and effort that was taken in developing that strategic plan. So when you're setting those priorities, you have to look at what are some of those following what I call the roadmap to fulfilling those. And again, back to working with the director, ensuring that the director is focused on how they are going to plan on delivering those particular priorities. And obviously, and again, there's the element of monitoring when it comes to that, as well as the governance role when it comes to a trustee is ensuring that whatever priorities are set, are established, they're also being monitored, and that's through regular communication with the director.
Thank you. And the third question, the board has made a decision that you opposed. As a trustee in opposition, how would you move forward?
Okay. In that particular question, one of the tenets of democracy is the decision of the board. There may be opportunities that you are on the right side of the vote, and sometimes you're not on the right side of the vote. But at the end of the day, the decision was made, and it's a unified decision. And I really want to emphasize it's a unified decision. And throughout my career, that's one thing that we've always tried to instill in some of our managers, supervisors. When a decision is made, you don't want the frontline telling the frontline staff saying, well, the guy's up there or the girl's up there made the decision. I'm not really in support of it. It's really counterproductive to ensuring that it's a unified message. So any decision that's made, you have to look at it. This is a democratic society, democratic process that we're going through, and the decision is final. But it also is to support that decision. That's the second piece of it. Yes, you say you're going to support the will of the trustee and of the board, but also the second and the most important part is you speak as a unified voice. It's not a matter of saying, well, I lost a vote, but I'm still against it. No, it's a unified vote. Decisions made, and in my opinion, that's the decision that you have to follow going forward.
Thank you very much. And as the chair mentioned previously, you're more than welcome to stay in the gallery, or you're welcome to leave.
Is there any opportunity to add any additional comments to those questions, or that's it?
No, so that we maintain the process for everybody.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So the first question, as a trustee, what opportunities and challenges do you see for student achievement and well-being? How can the board monitor progress in these areas?
First of all, thank you for seeing me today, and I appreciate the opportunity. I do not have a formal presentation. I came more prepared for a conversation, to be quite frank. And I see great opportunities, and I also see great challenges as well, obviously. As far as opportunities, I think development is coming. I believe your programs such as a Cadence and Prime are working well. I believe those are very valuable metrics. I think that is great information for parents and teachers alike, and I think those should continue. I do believe, though, that as far as challenges, there are many, and I'll start with you're underfunded. I think that's my humble opinion, but that's a given in my thoughts. But another huge challenge, obviously, is the behavioral issues within the classroom. I truly believe that the behavioral issues are not only robbing opportunity from the students around it, but they're robbing from the bottom line. And I personally would have interest in metrics regarding the real cost of behaviors. Funding additional teachers or vice principals for additional days to deal with one or two people is obviously very expensive. It goes without saying. So I think there's a real opportunity there. My feeling is the greatest opportunity yet, though, is to find a way or seek out ways to re-engage our parents. We need our parents and our educators on the same team, in the same corner, pulling on the same end of the rope. This me versus them thinking, in my opinion, has got to go. I'm a true believer in the old adage that it takes a village to raise a child. And I think mom and dad play a huge part in education, just like the teacher. That's my answer.
Thank you. And the second question, how would you determine budget priorities?
So when I read this question, I wasn't quite sure if you're asking my personal opinions or as if I was a part of this group. But that's tough right there. I in my day job, I do a great deal with budgets. I have to set CapEx budgets for the facility for the year. I have to look at every single project that comes through the building, and I have to determine whether it's going to be successful or fail, and make sure that it's successful. My strategies have always been the same. You have got to sit down and you have got to develop a list of the value-added priorities. It's that black and white, honestly, that simple. And at the end of the day, you cannot spend more than you bring in. So if that is the case, everything else has got to go. It's that simple, honestly. It's a matter of tough choices. There's going to be disappointed people and disappointed groups. And you have to make the choices, though, that are for the greater good of the population. You know what I mean? What if it's my opinion you're interested in? Core competencies would be my absolute focus. Language, maths, sciences are obviously where the money goes, and beyond that, it's discretionary at that point. I do believe, though, that a balanced budget is an absolute necessity, and I really believe that it is step one in securing more funding. That's my opinion. That's my answer.
Thank you. And the third question, the board has made a decision that you opposed. As a trustee in opposition, how would you move forward?
So if the group has made a decision, that is the choice, and you have to move on, right? there is absolutely no point to holding a grudge and grinding your axe and attempting to take it out on that person next to you over the next 3 issues. There's no point to that. It takes energy away from yourself, and it robs the group from the opportunity of making the best choices and coming up with the best ideas. In my day job, as I alluded to, I'm the plant manager of a facility, but I have a boss. I answer to the president, who is also the owner. And there are many opportunities when we will discuss something. We do not necessarily agree, but when you make a decision and you close that door behind you and you leave, you now represent that decision. I have learned very clearly that not only do you need to be a leader, you have to be a good soldier. You have to follow through, and you have to represent that decision as if it was your own at that time. That's my answer.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
That concludes the interview. You're welcome to stay in the gallery or you're welcome to leave.
Thanks for your time.
Hello. I will ask you the first question. As a trustee, what opportunities and challenges do you see for student achievement and well-being? And how can the board monitor progress in these areas?
Good evening. As a trustee, I see both opportunities and challenges in advancing student achievement and well-being within the GECDSB. The most recent student census and the board strategic plan provides critical insights to guide our efforts. It's clear that from fostering an inclusive environment through meaningful opportunities to reflect the diverse intersectionalities of our students in the classroom is a top priority. The diversity of our student population, including substantial representation from Black, East Asian, Middle Eastern, South Asian, and 2S LGBTQIA+ communities, offers a unique opportunity to foster inclusivity and cultural differences. Something I'd like to point out was very important to me during my first term as a student trustee, and something that I know a lot of our students across the system would appreciate. This diversity enriches the learning environment and highlights the importance of equity-driven strategies to meet the needs of all our students. The diversity of our students presents an incredible opportunity to foster inclusivity, celebrate different perspectives, and create learning environments that meet the unique needs of our community at large. Though I recognize that in these troubling times, there are a number of constraints that impact program availability and the state of education that must be thoughtfully addressed. The 2024-25 approved budget reflects fiscal constraints that demand careful prioritization of resources. Addressing these issues requires a thoughtful balance of immediate action and long-term planning. At the time of serving my term as student trustee in 2021 and 2022, there was an emphasis on pandemic recovery and getting our students back on track, the aftermath of which is still seen today. I had the privilege of co-chairing the Student Senate and establishing the Student Success and Development Committee. We implemented initiatives like peer tutoring programs and the Student Leadership Conference to remove barriers and promote academic achievement in all its forms. These experiences have shown me that targeted collaborative efforts can make a significant impact. As a trustee, I would draw on my experience as a former student trustee to advance these goals through collaborative efforts. Furthermore, I would work to ensure funding is prioritized for programs that directly impact student well-being, such as mental health resources and special education services, a top priority from the community as outlined in the public budget consultations. The board can monitor progress by setting measurable goals tied to its multi-year strategic plan and regularly consult with stakeholders, particularly the ones in classrooms, starting with our educators and our students. Regularly engaging with parents, students, and community organizations ensures that we remain responsive to the evolving needs of our students. Monitoring progress is essential to achieving meaningful outcomes. But the board must use data-driven evaluation, including metrics from future student censuses, to assess the effectiveness of policies and programs. Regular progress reports and transparent communication with the community will build trust and ensure accountability. Additionally, creating feedback mechanisms for students and families will help the board remain responsive to their evolving needs. However, I want to acknowledge that I recognize measuring progress is more than what may just appear on paper. An open door policy style feedback mechanism are critical to ensuring transparency, accountability, and most importantly, decision-making processes that reflect those that we represent. By aligning our actions with the insights from the census and the objectives outlined in the strategic plan, we can address systemic challenges while fostering environments where every student feels supported and empowered to succeed. My fresh perspective as a recent GECDSB grad and current University of Windsor student allows me to relate directly to the student experience and understand the gaps that still exist. By working collaboratively with trustees, senior administration, the director, staff, and the community, I'm committed to fostering environments where every student feels supported and empowered to succeed. Thank you.
Thank you. And the second question, how would you determine budget priorities?
Determining budget priorities is arguably one of the most complex yet vital responsibilities of a trustee. It requires balancing competing needs while ensuring long-term student success and preserving the quality of the educational experience. My approach begins with a commitment to listening, learning, and engaging in thoughtful consultation. By working closely with students, parents, educators, and community members, we can better understand their priorities to make informed decisions. I recognize that I'm being entrusted with the stewardship of public funds, a responsibility I don't take lightly. Budget priorities are not a one-size-fits-all approach, nor can they be determined by a single trustee. It's not about how I would do it, it's about how we, as a board, would collaborate to make the best possible decisions. The decisions of the board reflect us all, and I am ready to work with my colleagues and administration to address these challenges. I also recognize that I don't have all the answers, but I see this as a unique advantage. My willingness to ask questions, seek diverse perspectives, and learn alongside my community equips me to be an effective advocate. As I've mentioned, I bring a fresh perspective and new ideas grounded in firsthand experience with what works and what can be improved. This lens allows me to identify opportunities for meaningful change while ensuring that every decision is rooted in the best interest of our students. Rather than focusing on short-term solutions, I believe in investing in sustainable initiatives that provide lasting benefits. The key is to approach budget decisions with a collaborative mindset, open to compromise but unwavering in the commitment to student achievement and well-being. Ultimately, how do we decide what deserves funding? We do so by adhering to the principles of equity, accountability, and impact. Every dollar spent must align with the board's strategic plan and support measurable outcomes that benefit all students. By fostering transparent decision-making and ensuring ongoing dialogue with stakeholders, we can navigate these difficult decisions together. My passion and drive lie in being a trustee who champions these values and ensures that every student's potential is realized through thoughtful stewardship of our resources. Thank you.
And the third question, the board has made a decision you opposed. As a trustee in opposition, how would you move forward?
As a trustee, I recognize that disagreement is inevitable because the issues that we face are complex and there are often multiple equally valid ways to approach a solution. This diversity of thought is not only expected, but it's necessary to find the best path forward. Disagreement, when approached constructively, fosters collaboration and ensures that our decisions reflect the collective wisdom of the board. While I may not always agree with my colleagues, I deeply value their perspectives and recognize that their insights can offer clarity or reveal alternative approaches that I may not have considered. Together, we can represent the GECDSB in a way that promotes student success, well-being, the development of our future leaders, and reinforces the board's motto of building tomorrow together. If I oppose the decision, I will always ensure that my concerns are presented respectfully and thoughtfully during the decision-making process. My goal is to engage in open dialogue that is constructive in prioritizing student success and community well-being. However, once a resolution is passed, I understand my fiduciary responsibility to the board to support its implementation while continuing to monitor its impact. It's important that my opposition and points of opposition become part of the evaluations framework. I recognize my role as one of 10 votes to support the board's decision in public and upholding the board's decisions with integrity, but also remaining critical in analyzing outcomes deeply that emphasize their effects on students and the board as a whole, because our goal here is to support the strength of public education. Every decision deserves critical analysis, and I'll approach each resolution with a focus on its long-term impact. My prior experience on the board has taught me that the best outcomes often emerge when we challenge ourselves and each other to think beyond immediate pressures. By fostering respectful dialogue, staying open to feedback, and prioritizing student achievement and well-being, I'm confident in my ability to navigate opposition with professionalism, passion, and purpose. This approach allows me to not only serve as an effective advocate, but as a partner in shaping a better future for all students. I will note that when something matters to the people of our community, I'll advocate passionately and tirelessly. But at the same time, I'm hopeful that trustees can work together collaboratively to find creative and lasting solutions, even in the face of disagreement. Because collaboration doesn't mean compromising on our values, it means finding a common ground to address challenges in a way that reflects our shared commitment to students. My prior experience as a student trustee and the learning that I've done since then has taught me that the best outcomes often emerge from robust discussions where different ideas and perspectives are challenged and redefined. I'm excited to bring this mindset to the table, working with my fellow trustees to create lasting, meaningful solutions, reinforcing the strength of public education. By fostering respect, collaboration, and a relentless focus on students, I believe we can achieve great things together and truly build a brighter future for all. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes the interview. You're welcome to stay in the gallery or you're welcome to leave.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. So I'll ask the first question. As a trustee, what opportunities and challenges do you see for student achievement and well-being? How can the board monitor progress in these areas?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you to everybody for the opportunity to get this interview. And it was great to meet all the people, all the candidates. They're all fantastic, and I'm sure you're going to pick the right person for this position. So, opportunities. I see there's an opportunity dealing with, growth. All the immigrants that are coming into our area, they bring a lot of culture and ideas, which just enrich our education program and enrich our children. So, of course, with the growth, we also have issues with demand on our schools. Capacity in our classrooms. More students that the teachers have to monitor, and this growth also have issues with funding, and support for our teachers, and kind of without a change in funding, many of these programs are going to disappear. These opportunities and growth also provide, different programs that we could create, such as skilled trade programs, which I find is something that we lack in our board at this time. Coming through from a construction background, I find that these skilled trades are lacking, and I know there's been a lot of programs coming forward, but I think we're behind the 8 ball, and we need to look at how we're going to catch up. Some other concerns that we have, our children see is mental health issues, different learning inabilities. We're short staffed, and environmental challenges we have. But a big one for me, a challenge that I see that our students have is multimedia. I believe cell phones hurt our kids. I see they banned TikTok in the States, and I think it's something that we should have here. I think disinformation is bad, and it hurts our students, and it also hurts the board itself. There's too much disinformation out there that our kids are seeing, and it's a concern for me. And I think there should be some policies and procedures going forward that should be implemented and to help. Some ways we can monitor progress through the procedures we put forward is probably more observation, and our continued interaction with our kids, monitor them socially, emotionally, their development, their creativity, their innovations, and obviously, monitor their grades. That's my answer for your question. What?
Thank you. And the second question, how would you determine budget priorities?
Well, first of all, I think we need to come up with a strategic plan, a plan for our future growth. Our area is fastly becoming the largest or the fastest growing community in Canada. And we need to embrace that and focus that and look forward to that within our budgets. We need to build a team through all areas of our school board, create that team that's responsible for creating that budget. And obviously they have to become transparent, efficient. They have to have accountability, and they got to reach out to the community. They got to ask our community what do they want to see going forward when we create our budgets. I think we need to focus on some of the basics. We need to focus on growth in other areas of our community. And I think we need to reach out to stakeholders within our community, such as the Construction Association, when we build some different programs, for example, the skilled trades. Reach out to them for monetary items, in-kind donations. This will help our bottom line.
And the third question, the board has made a decision that you opposed. As a trustee in opposition, how would you move forward?
Well, it's a board of trustees, and your vote counts. And once a decision is made, you have to accept that, right? And you have to abide by that, and you have to live by that. So you have to respect the other position, and you just go forward.
Thank you. So that concludes the interview process. As the chair mentioned previously, you're welcome to stay in the gallery or you're welcome to leave.
Yeah. Again, thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Good. So the first question, as a trustee, what opportunities and challenges do you see for student achievement and well-being? And how can the board monitor progress in these areas?
So that's a fantastic question. I think there's probably about a million different ways you could go with something like that, from discussing policy changes at the provincial level to budgets to any number of other directions. In 15 minutes, how do you boil that down, right? I think one of the biggest opportunities, if I were to start, is engaging with our local community and community partners. As someone who has lived in Windsor for a very long time, who's gone through public education here, I knew shockingly little about my own city. I didn't know any of the history, and we have such a unique history and such a unique culture. I think that there's a real opportunity there to teach kids about Windsor and what makes it unique. You know, we're preparing young people to step out into society, but the first step in society is the local community, right? So I think that that's a real opportunity. I know that at the high school level, we do that a lot more often with things like co-op programs, things of that nature. My son's in elementary school, so we're still some ways off. So that's kind of the lens I look at life through. So that's kind of the first opportunity that I see. One of the first challenges that I identified was, my son's in grade 3. I'm looking at EQAO scores. I can't help myself. I know the standardized tests are not everything, but I see 38% of grade 3 students are below provincial standards. And that's not unique to our district. That's across the board as well. It's 38% here in Windsor-Essex. It's 38% in all of Ontario as well. So we're kind of right on trend, for better or worse. But then that number jumps to 48% when it's a grade 6. So something is happening with our young kids where we're losing almost half of them in math by grade 6. And I work with numbers every day. I love math. I think it's fun. And I think if you look at some of the qualitative data behind kids in grade 3, kids in grade 6, and you ask them, and that is one of the questions they ask on the EQAO test is, do you like math? Do you think you're good at math? Overwhelmingly, they say yes. So there's a huge disconnect there. I would say that that's one of the biggest challenges I see is connecting those dots for these kids who love math but aren't succeeding at it. When you love something and you don't succeed at it, you keep trying or you give up, right? So those are kind of like the first opportunity, the first challenge. And then the biggest point that I wanted to make and save a lot of time for, because I think it encompasses all three so well, is the role of technology, both for us as a school board and for students in the classroom. I think technology is an outcome in and of itself. The future is here. It's going to continue to be here. We're not doing anyone any service by ignoring it or teaching things the old way, right? In my lifetime, I've seen us go from a landline to dial-up internet. I remember being in 7th grade getting a computer in my house, all the way through to now where we all have computers and cell phones in our pockets constantly. As you reminded us to turn them off, that was probably very difficult for many of us. But the role of technology means that the future is increasingly uncertain for these kids. The world that they're going to enter into is not necessarily the one they're being educated in today. By that I mean, my job didn't exist 15 years ago. I could not have gone to school for it, right? 8-year-old kids didn't dream about becoming digital media marketing specialists or software sales engineers. These weren't jobs that existed when I was a youngster. And very similarly, jobs don't exist today for what our kids are going to end up doing, right? It's hard to envision what they'll do. Something with AI, probably. Something with technology, undoubtedly. And so how do we ensure that the kids get that access to technology, that exposure to technology in a responsible, ethical, an appropriate way, I think that that probably represents the biggest challenge. But the opportunities are massive. I use AI on a very small example, but I use it on a personal level with my son with reading. I will have ChatGPT generate small story for him to read, and then we discuss it together. So it's a very powerful tool when used, again, appropriately and ethically. I think that's the real challenge when it comes to all this AI stuff. But I think the opportunities are endless to create personalized, tailored learning experiences for individual students. In terms of how to measure outcomes, I talked about math scores. Those seem pretty stock standard on how to measure outcomes there. I think what's worth mentioning is when setting a goal to keep in mind not only an outcome, but also a timeline, right? It's not a reasonable expectation to say, we're going to get that 38% down to 30. It also needs to be paired with a timeline. We're going to get that down to 30 in 5 years. Then you have a realistic goal that you can aim towards with policy objectives, right? More broadly, in terms of goals, I think that numbers are obviously the preferred thing. That's what I deal with professionally, is number goals. You have a sales target, you have a number of calls target, any number of things. We have an MQL target for our marketing team. But I think there's also qualitative goals that you can set. You can set goals for community engagement, how people feel tied into the survey responses. These are not things I necessarily deal with every day professionally, but they're important metrics nevertheless, and that's a valid way to measure the success or outcome of a project. I rambled, so please let me know if you need clarification.
Thank you. And the second question, how would you determine budget priorities?
Yeah, that's a great question. My personal experience, my personal professional experience is pretty limited to working in a private sector environment. There is usually very clear ROI, or return on investment, for budgetary line items. So the decisions I have had to make, very fortunately for me, have been much easier, I imagine, than what you have to make here. Given the opportunity to make decisions here with all of you, I think the most important thing is to look at your budget through the lens of a student and take a student-centric approach to how we itemize our budget and look for line items that would have the biggest direct impact on students. Kind of as a first priority, I would, just as I do professionally, I would take input from stakeholders on any budgetary decision. So as a practical example, when I was cutting one of our software solutions last year, I met with all the stakeholders. I met with the end users who use the tool every day. I met with line managers who manage those teams to really understand, what are you using this tool for? What are we losing? What gets lost, actually? I think that if you're going to make a decision like that, it's incumbent on you to do that due diligence, understand what is being lost, and understand it really. So I sat with them and met with all of them and understood what they're using the tool for, what the value really is. When reaching the decision to cut it, I came up with an alternative. That's, I think, also incumbent on you. If you're cutting something, you need to own that, and part of ownership means providing alternative solutions. So we cut this tool and we said, hey, we're going to allocate 1 month of custom development work in our existing infrastructure to solve for the challenges that you're currently solving for with this tool. The result was we ended up saving about 12% of our tech spend. So that's kind of a practical example. So meeting with stakeholders, I would say, is like one of the most important things you could do. And then kind of unique to your position is you've got to balance short-term goals, money that needs to get spent now, things that need to happen now, versus long-term capital expenditures. Buildings need maintenance. Air conditioners need replacing, all of those things that aren't necessarily attractive or high priority line items, but need to be accounted for. Additionally, something that's unique to this position is you need to consider liability and liability mitigation whenever you're reaching any sort of budgetary. You can't cut, shoveling the sidewalks or salting the snow, right? Very timely with how cold it's been. That's just something you can't take out of the line item because liability, right? So those are kind of the considerations that I would take when making any budget decisions, but I'm fortunate that I haven't had to do that yet.
Thank you. And the third question.
Yes.
The board has made a decision that you opposed. As a trustee in opposition, how would you move forward?
It's a good question. I think the most important thing when working with other people is to leave your ego at the door right from the jump. And if you approach your colleagues with kindness and respect, I think you find yourself without conflict very often. We might disagree, but we're on the same team ultimately. We're trying to do the same thing. We want what's best, and it makes it a lot easier to reconcile differences in opinion on policy or the approach when we are aligned on our goals. One thing that I find effective, and it sounds really silly, is using plural language. We did this. So whenever there's a decision made, we made this decision. Whenever something's enacted, we did this. We share ownership, we share wins, we share losses. And that really helps, kind of like I said at the top, take the ego out of the equation. We're a team. Even if I didn't agree, the best idea really is the one that we're all in agreement with, not the actual true best. So I've been very fortunate. I haven't had a lot of conflict.
Thank you. So that concludes the interview process. You're welcome to stay in the gallery or you're welcome to leave.
Can I make a personal remark?
Pardon?
Can I make a personal remark?
A quick one.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
I'll read the first question to you.
Okay.
As a trustee, what opportunities and challenges do you see for student achievement and well-being? How can the board monitor progress in these areas?
So, hi, good evening, everybody. Before I jump into my response, I just quickly want to say thank you for inviting me to interview for this opportunity. I'm so thrilled to be considered for a position where I can make such a meaningful impact in my community. As I'm hoping you'll hear from my responses shortly, that this passion that I have about this role is not about me. It's about serving my community and advocating strongly for others, in addition to informing change based on my diverse lived experiences. So to begin, I'd like to discuss the successes that our board has had in this realm. With respect to achievement, we have amazing programs such as the eSTEAM program at Tecumseh Vista, the enrichment program at Massey, as well as the arts program at Walkerville. These programs allow students to master achievement in a way that is meaningful to them, both in school and beyond. With respect to well-being, I've had the opportunity and privilege to be involved in a number of different initiatives with respect to well-being and mental health. I've sat on a number of committees and councils whereby we have tailored resources and implemented resources to help students in this area. As a parent, I've had the opportunity to see my child directly benefit from both the well-being and achievement initiatives that are within our board. So with regard to the gaps in these areas, my understanding of these gaps is largely informed by the little ones that I work with in my practice. My team and I work with a number of individuals who are coping with mental health struggles, as well as social challenges in addition to learning exceptionalities, which invariably can also impact their psychological well-being. Many of the families that I work with have indicated that their child is not receiving the academic and achievement supports that they require to address their unique learning needs. After all, just because their diagnosis is the same doesn't mean that their learning needs are the same. Many of these parents find that they either don't have the appropriate language, skills, or knowledge to be able to appropriately advocate for their child, which in turn can lead to having insufficient supports and accommodations in place, which in turn can impact them psychologically. So the board finds itself, I think, in a very unique position whereby they can address this complex interrelationship between achievement, accommodation, and psychological well-being, whereby if the board is able to more specifically address learning and accommodation needs, that invariably will also address their psychological well-being as well. So with respect to well-being, my knowledge of the gaps in this area are also informed by the youngsters that I work with in my practice. So many of them have shared that while their schools do have a degree of mental health literacy and understanding, many of the programs and resources are either scarce, too general, or hard to come by because of long wait times. So with respect to how boards can monitor progress in these areas, I think first and foremost focusing on already established frameworks such as EQAO testing, standardized wellness frameworks, as well as surveys such as the climate surveys that are sent out every year to families can provide really strong data that can be analyzed and provide an understanding of progress in these areas. Moreover, I think that having strong stakeholder input and consultation is incredibly important, specifically from students, parents, as well as outside professionals who may have a unique perspective on student achievement, well-being, and success, such as private practitioners like myself. In addition to this, I believe that taking a multimodal approach to students who have different learning needs is incredibly important. And this multimodal approach should include things such as not only focusing on their needs, but also their abilities and their strengths. Lastly, I think that it's incredibly important for boards to regularly analyze and observe legacy practices that might be in place. It's important to understand and ensure that these practices are serving the diverse needs of the population that's currently in our school community. So this whole topic of achievement and well-being is incredibly personal to me, not only because of my professional experience, but also because of my unique lived experiences. So as you may have noted in my application, I live with a genetic condition which has rendered me legally blind. This significant visual impairment has had a significant impact on both my learning and my achievement. Fortunately, however, over the years, I've developed the tools to strongly advocate for myself, to learn what accommodations I do in fact need, and how to have these accommodations put into place so I can thrive. I strongly believe that I am an example of an individual who could have fallen through the cracks had the appropriate accommodations and advocacy not been put into place to help support my achievement.
And I have the second question now. How would you determine budget priorities?
So over a 15-year span, I served on 2 different boards of directors for urban churches. In my role on the board of directors, I was responsible to help my fellow board members balance fiscal responsibility with the needs of the populations that we were serving, the community, the members, as well as the overall goals of the organization. I've been further able to enhance my abilities with respect to budgetary priorities by running a high-revenue, successful business, which has undergone a great deal of change and growth over the years. And as a result of this change and growth has also come changing financial priorities. I fully recognize the unique position that a school board finds itself in. The sheer size alone and the scale alone requires many very smart people to work together to balance the budgetary needs, fiscal responsibility, with the overall goals of the organization. This uniqueness aside, however, I feel that my experience both in business and sitting on a board of directors is able to be generalized in this type of setting as well. Ultimately, the goals are the same. We need to dream big, think outside of the box, and focus on the population that we're serving while balancing that heavily with fiscal responsibility and prudence. More specifically, I believe that relying on already established budgetary tools is incredibly important. So, for example, relying on strategic planning, having strong risk management abilities, being aware of and understanding governmental policies, procedures, and goals, and how those balance with the individual needs and goals of a board, in addition to having flexibility with changing financial priorities and ongoing stakeholder consultation. I strongly believe that boards have a responsibility to demonstrate to the public fiscal responsibility and prudence, but also clearly articulating to the public the complexities that come along with the setting, maintaining, and execution of a successful budget.
Thank you. And the third question, the board has made a decision that you opposed. As a trustee in opposition, how would you move forward?
So I think I find myself in a very unique position and have a very unique perspective being both a psychotherapist and a leader. I have a very deep understanding of what it is to be human, but also how that interacts with decision making, values, and maintaining strong interpersonal relationships. Ultimately, I think it's a good thing when groups of people have a healthy disagreement because this tells us that we're all thinking, we're all advocating for what we believe is the right thing, and it demonstrates clearly evidence of diversity of thought within a group. In my role as clinical director of a multidisciplinary team, we often find ourselves debating a case formulation or a treatment plan, and this debate is informed by our own individual profession's point of view. In these situations, I take this as an opportunity to lead by example by demonstrating critical thinking, active listening, recognizing that there isn't always one right answer, and also recognizing the importance of balancing strong advocacy with collaboration. To draw back to my experience with the board of directors at the church, I did in fact experience this type of situation. So there was a time that arose where I was strongly advocating for the purely fiscally responsible decision. So I brought forth some evidence that I felt supported my stance, and I shared with the board what some of my projections were in terms of how this could negatively impact the finances going forward. Unfortunately, the board voted against me. Was I happy? Of course not. But I didn't take this as an opportunity to be angry or upset, but instead I took a step back. I recognized that this was the democratic process at play. I recognized that I did the best that I could in that situation to advocate for what I thought was right. But most importantly, I didn't allow it to impact my relationship with my fellow board members. I will note, however, that I tracked this decision and noted down the road that it wasn't the best decision financially. Rather than gloating, however, I took this as an opportunity to bring it forward as a learning example for the team. And we looked at how we could implement future changes and future strategies to prevent things like this from happening in the future. So in my role as a trustee, I imagine that I would take a very similar framework and approach. I live a life that is consistent with my morals and ethics, and I allow my accountability and integrity to guide my decision making. As a trustee, however, I recognize that it's not all about me. It's about serving the population and making decisions that are going to have the best outcome for the population that we're serving. Sometimes we may find ourselves in situations where we have to demonstrate flexibility with our stance. In these situations, it's incredibly important to maintain flexibility as well as humility when looking at all sides of a situation from different angles, striving to understand the perspectives of others, in addition to recognizing that most of the time, there isn't an all right or an all wrong decision. It's incredibly important in these situations to remain flexible, listen openly, and most importantly, remain focused on the goal at hand as a united team.
Thank you. So that concludes the interview process. As mentioned earlier, you're welcome to remain in the gallery or you're free to leave.
Thank you.
So the first question, as a trustee, what opportunities and challenges do you see for student achievement and well-being? And how can the board monitor progress in these areas?
I think the greatest opportunity would be to help families navigate the system, knowing what tools and resources are out there. I myself have a daughter who is diagnosed as type 1, and that's when I learned about IEPs. I didn't know that was a thing. The hospital told us to contact the administration, and the wonderful administration was quick and swift. We had a meeting, they wrote up the IEP, and that's how I learned about IEPs. So I know there's a lot of families out there that don't know about these tools and resources that are available to them. And through governance, we can build a more impactful system and full of impactful process that can enhance the overall system with reasonable and necessary policies.
Thank you. And the second question, how would you determine budget priorities?
So the budget I know is going to be mainly allocated to salaries and budget and benefits. So the small part that is left over for non-staff resources, it's vital to rely on the expertise of administration to help us navigate the best course of action. So that way the money is well spent on resources and programs that meet the needs of the most students. Sometimes the most difficult decisions have to be made, and they are not always the most popular.
And the third question, the board has made a decision that you opposed. As a trustee in opposition, how would you move forward?
So during the debate process, that's probably the spot where we have the most room to disagree, where we all have different views, and that's what makes the system of debate so impactful, because that is how we find the best solution. Once the board has made a decision, though, I would support it 100%. Our job as trustees is to see the final decision is successfully implemented, and once the decision is made, I would sincerely respect and support it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that concludes the process. As was mentioned earlier, you're welcome to stay in the gallery or you're welcome to leave.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening. So the first question, as a trustee, what opportunities and challenges do you see for student achievement and well-being? And how can the board monitor progress in these areas?
Okay, thank you for the question. I would first like to start by thanking the Chairperson Hatfield for the opportunity to interview for this position. And I'd like to say that I am inspired by the board's commitment to building safe and inclusive communities that place student success and well-being at the forefront. And I am eager to bring my experience and passion to support these efforts. The Greater Essex County District School Board's strategic focus on student success, achievement, and well-being is both visionary and essential. I commend the board for recognizing that student well-being serves as the foundation for academic success and for prioritizing these areas in its strategic plan. The board's existing initiatives, such as the Mental Health and Well-Being Action Plan and the School Climate Survey, provide a solid framework for fostering safe and supportive environments. Building upon these efforts, I see opportunities to establish specific targets and measurable metrics linked to the action plan to monitor progress effectively and identify areas of improvement. This proactive approach ensures that initiatives remain impactful and align with the board's objectives. Parent and guardian engagement is another vital area with immense potential. Evidence consistently shows that increased parental involvement directly enhances student outcomes. By leveraging grants, community resources, and ministry partnerships, the board can further empower parents to engage in their children's education. My experience with GECPIC and the Parent Council has shown me that these resources are underutilized assets that can significantly strengthen the board's efforts. In the area of student achievement, the board's use of EQAO data exemplifies a commitment to evidence-based decision-making. Establishing clear targets for EQAO performance and linking them to strategic goals would provide an opportunity for an objective evaluation of the effectiveness of its actions relative to the strategic priorities. Despite these opportunities, challenges such as budget constraints remain a significant concern. While the board has developed impactful action plans, financial limitations can hinder the provision of individualized student support, professional development for staff, and resources for vulnerable populations. By fostering partnerships with community organizations and continuing to build public trust, the board can address these challenges effectively. Collaborating with senior administration for regular assessments of progress and maintaining transparent communication with the community will further strengthen the board's efforts and enhance public confidence in public education.
And the second question, how would you determine budget priorities?
Budget priorities must be guided by the board's strategic vision and values. As a trustee, I would ensure that all budget decisions align with the board's mission of fostering student success and well-being while maintaining transparency and equity throughout the process. I understand that the board operates in a challenging financial landscape, requiring careful deliberation and innovative problem solving. Community engagement is critical in this context. By soliciting input from parents, students, stakeholders through surveys, focus groups, the board can ensure diverse perspectives are represented in decision-making, reinforcing public trust in the process. The GECDSB has already made commendable efforts to improve efficiency and reduce costs. However, I believe further opportunities exist to maximize resources. Benchmarking and collaboration with other school boards can identify best practices and enhance operational efficiencies, thus creating additional capacity to invest in student-centered initiatives. This commitment to innovation and fiscal responsibility reflects the board's dedication to its students and demonstrates its ability to navigate complex challenges while staying true to its mission. Thank you.
And the third question, the board has made a decision that you opposed. As a trustee in opposition, how would you move forward?
As a trustee, I would uphold the board's governance bylaws and respect the implementation of any resolution once it has been passed. A culture of open dialogue and mutual respect is crucial to the board's success, and I am committed to fostering an environment where diverse opinions are valued and heard. The board's adherence to Robert's Rules of Order ensures that every trustee has the opportunity to voice their perspectives and contribute to informed decision-making. I would actively seek to understand differing viewpoints and the rationale behind the final decision, enabling me to effectively communicate the outcome to the community that I represent. My lifelong dedication to education has taught me that collaboration, shared goals, drive progress. I believe in the board's collective commitment to creating safe and inclusive learning communities, and I'm eager to contribute to this vision.
Thank you. So that concludes the process. I'm sure you figured out you're the last candidate.
Yes.
When you were the only one in the room. So at this point, then we'll conduct the vote. You're welcome to wait in the gallery, or you're welcome to leave.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Take a 5-minute break. Back in the room at 6, please. And I'll just, we have 4 trustees present for the voting, so the majority will be 4.
We have 7 present.
Yeah. So what did I say? We have 7 voting, the majority will be 4. Yep. Voting is what I said, and 4 will be the vote, the majority. Okay, so there's no clear majority yet. There is a tie for the least number of votes. Those 2 names are going into the hat, and the one that is pulled will be going forward to the next ballot. And then we will vote again. You hear what I said? There is a tie. There's no clear majority. There is a tie for the between these 2 candidates. So they're picking one who will go forward onto the next ballot. The other name will be dropped off the ballot. The name going forward will be John Miller. So the new ballot,
Cross off on the ballots.
yes, there's going to be 9 names on the new ballot? Correct. Sorry? 3 names on the, oh. I'm going to recess for 30 seconds. Okay, so there are 3 names remaining on the ballot. Okay.
The three
And
that are highlighted.
the 3 names are the ones that are highlighted. So that's where your vote goes now. We do have a majority now, and I'm happy to announce that the new trustee will be Malik McCowie. Congratulations. So I'm looking for a motion to appoint Malik as the trustee, Trustee Leclerc, Trustee Nelson. So the motion is that we're appointing Malik for the remainder of the term. All those in support? Any opposed? Thank you, that's carried. And a motion to destroy the ballots. Trustee Burgess and Trustee McKinley, all those in support? That's carried. Thank you very much. That concludes the approved agenda for tonight. I thank everybody for their time, and if they could turn in their binders and their papers to Melissa, please. Thank you.